There is a fundamental framework of thought that entirely reshapes the reality you experience. It doesn't start on the surface, not with mantras, not with forced affirmations, not with sheer willpower. It begins in a much deeper stratum of your psyche. It originates in the precise location that determines whether you are a reaction to the world or whether you are an emanation from within yourself. Can you feel the difference? Can you sense the vibrational gap between a person who is constantly scrambling for validation and a person who simply occupies their space and finds the world drawn to them? This quality of presence has a name in deep psychology, and it doesn't just alter how others see you, it alters what is able to enter your life in the first place. Over the next few minutes, you are going to discover the precise reason why some individuals seem to effortlessly attract profound respect, deep connections, and unseen opportunities, while others pour out their energy, burn themselves out, and remain completely invisible. This isn't about learning external strategies or manipulative social tactics. This is about a core, internal reorganization of your psychic architecture. The psychoanalyst Carl Jung identified this as the critical difference between an inflated, fragile ego and a truly integrated self. The difference is invisible to the eye, but its effect is nothing short of magnetic. What you're learning here isn't a life hack. It is a profound recalibration of your entire operating system from the inside out. You will learn what it means to think from a queen's framework, which is the opposite of obsessing about being a queen. And it is this single pivotal shift in perspective that unlocks the very doors that previously seemed welded shut. Imagine for a moment that your mind is an energetic blueprint. Every core belief, every shadow you've suppressed, broadcasts a very specific frequency. Most people believe they can change their lives just by thinking a positive thought. But that's like putting a single coat of paint on a house with crumbling foundations. What truly matters is not the isolated thought, but the psychic structure it grows from. Jung recognized that our internal organization determines whether we are broadcasting from a position of a supplicant or a sovereign. A queen never needs to ask if she's allowed to enter the room. Her entry defines the room. The space itself reorients around her presence. Now, this has absolutely nothing to do with arrogance. It is a matter of profound internal coherence. When your ego is no longer at war with your shadow, when you are no longer desperately trying to exile or hide parts of yourself, your energy stops hemorrhaging. You become whole. And this wholeness, this integration creates a field that other people can feel before you ever say a word. They sense that you are not auditioning for their approval. They sense you are not trying to prove anything. And in a strange paradox, this very lack of seeking is what magnetically draws the validation and respect that so many others chase in vain. So many of us carry an invisible script, what Jung would call a complex. A complex is like an autonomous pocket of the psyche that hijacks our reactions. The good girl or orphan complex is rampant. It's born in childhood when we learn that our full radiance is somehow dangerous, that shining brightly invites punishment, and that it is simply safer to stay small. This complex whispers in your ear, "Don't speak up until you know what everyone else thinks. Apologize for taking up space. Just be grateful they even noticed you." Do you recognize that internal whisper? It's subtle, but it dictates your entire framework for reality. As long as you are thinking from that complex, you are, in a mental sense, perpetually standing outside the door, waiting to be invited in. You are waiting for an external signal to tell you that you're allowed to stand up and be counted. But that invitation will never come, because the only one who can grant it is you. A queen reverses the flow. She asks one question first. Is this resonant with my own deep inner truth? This one simple reversal of the query changes the entire relational dynamic around you. This isn't an act of selfishness, it is an act of profound energetic responsibility. When you stop polluting the room with the static of apology and unconscious submission, you implicitly give everyone else permission to step into their own power as well. You become a mirror for sovereignty, not a mirror for neediness. And this, by its very nature, attracts an entirely different caliber of people and circumstances into your life. How you view yourself in your own mind is the blueprint for how the world will position you. If your internal narrative is still running on the software of, I must prove that I am worthy, then you make yourself an object to be evaluated by others. You hand your power away to every passing opinion, every critical glance. Jung described the entire process of individuation as the journey from object to subject, from the one being assessed to the one who assesses, from the reactor to the actor. This journey begins with a simple, profound decision. You stop seeing yourself through the eyes of others. A queen holds her own gaze even in the face of rejection. She understands that rejection cannot touch her essence. It only reveals that the other person cannot match her frequency. And that is perfectly acceptable. When you operate from your center, external projections lose their ability to stick to you. They find no hook, no opening, no charge because you are internally stable. This is the pivot point. You stop attracting what you fear and begin attracting what reflects your integrated sovereignty. In this moment, something fundamental shifts. Your thinking moves from the frequency of fear to the frequency of presence. Fear is always asking, what might happen if I am truly seen? Presence simply states, I am here. No justification, no apology, no shrinking. This simple declarative presence has a transformative power precisely because it does not ask for permission. Jung championed the concept of the transcendent function, which is the psyche's innate ability to unite seemingly opposing forces. Most people live in a state of internal fragmentation. They believe they must choose between being strong or being sensitive, between being autonomous or being connected, between being assertive or being soft. A queen doesn't choose. She integrates. She understands that true power is not found in being one-sided, but in the capacity to hold the entire spectrum of human experience within herself without judgment. This mode of thinking is not purely logical nor purely emotional. It is symbolic. It operates through synthesis, not exclusion. When you stop fragmenting your own psyche into good parts and bad parts, your energy consolidates. You become a coherent whole. And the people around you feel this. They don't feel confused in your presence. They feel clarified because you are not broadcasting internal confusion. You are no longer a battlefield of contradictory impulses, but an integrated landscape. What do you attract then? You no longer attract chaos because you are no longer in a state of inner chaos. You no longer attract people who prey on your insecurities because you are no longer wearing your open wounds as an invitation. Instead, you attract resonance. You attract people and circumstances that vibrate in harmony with your inner wholeness. This is the secret of magnetic thinking. It begins by ending the civil war inside you. Have you ever met someone who simply had nothing to prove, someone who was just there, complete and calm, and whose very presence shifted the energy of the entire room? That is not an accident, and it is not an inborn gift. It is the result of the deep inner work that Jung called individuation. These are people who have faced their shadows, integrated their disowned parts, and made peace with their own contradictions. They are no longer fighting themselves, and so they have no need to fight the world. You can cultivate this quality. It starts by noticing. Notice when you shift into the mode of justification. Notice when you make yourself small. Notice when you are mentally asking for permission to take up your own space. And in those exact moments, you can pause and you can ask, what if I didn't have to do this? What if I was allowed to simply be here exactly as I am? This question opens a doorway to an entirely different thought pattern. A pattern based not on lack, but on fullness, not on fear, but on trust, not on proving, but on being. A queen does not argue for her royalty, she embodies it, in every gesture, every choice, every silence. Her thinking is not loud and demanding, it is quiet and certain. Jung said that the true self cannot be explained to another person's ego. It can only be recognized by someone who is also awake. This means you will not be understood by everyone. And that is perfectly, profoundly okay. When your thinking is anchored in the self, in that deep internal wholeness, you stop battling with people who cannot understand your frequency. You simply let them be, and you remain in your truth. That is the ultimate freedom. You do not need to be understood to be respected. Your presence is enough. This certainty is magnetic precisely because it is not needy. It does not ask. It does not demand. It does not plead. It simply is, and that which is simple, true, and whole attracts that which is like it. So many people spend their lives chasing an external crown. They chase validation, status, achievement, or love. They believe that if they just acquire enough, perform enough, or please enough people, they will finally feel whole. But this path is a dead end, because it is based on a false premise, the idea that wholeness can come from the outside. Jung understood individuation not as an act of construction, but as an act of unveiling. You do not create the self. You simply clear away the debris that blocks you from seeing it. The queen has always been there, buried under layers of conditioning, trauma, adaptation, and fear. The journey is not about becoming someone. It is about remembering who you have always been. Do you remember who you were before the world told you who you should be? Before you learned to shrink, to adapt, to hide your truth? That original self, unfiltered and whole, is your queen. She has never ceased to exist. She has only been waiting for you to find the courage to remove the masks and see her again. When you begin to think from this place of remembrance, everything changes. Not because the world has changed, but because you have returned to your center. You no longer seek completion from the outside, because you realize that wholeness was always your factory setting. This realization is revolutionary. It ends the endless striving, the desperate search, the chronic dissatisfaction. Suddenly life becomes simpler, not because the challenges disappear, but because you are no longer fighting yourself in the middle of them. You are no longer divided, so the world no longer needs to send you reflections of your division. You attract what resonates with your essence, and you let go of what does not, without drama, without guilt, without doubt. The thinking of a queen is not strategic. It is intuitive. It does not ask, how can I get what I want? It asks, what is aligned with my truth? And this question opens pathways that the strategic mind could never find. Because when you act from your truth, you are working with the flow of life, not against it. Jung called this principle synchronicity, the meaningful alignment of an inner state with an outer event. When your inner world is ordered, your outer world orders itself to match, not through magic, but through resonance. Your inner state sends out a signal, and the universe responds in kind. A queen sends the signal of sovereignty, and life responds with circumstances that mirror that sovereignty. This does not mean you will be exempt from difficulty. It means you will meet difficulty in a new way, not as a victim, not as someone being done to, but as someone who understands that challenge is part of the journey. You do not lose your center when things go wrong, because your center is no longer dependent on things going right. This stability is what others find so attractive. People are unconsciously searching for an anchor, for someone who is not tossed about by the storm, someone who radiates an inner calm even when everything around them is chaos. This is leadership in its purest form, not through control but through presence. A queen does not hide her power. She does not apologize for her presence. She does not over-explain herself. She is simply there, complete and unwavering. And this quality has become so rare in a world that teaches us to constantly bend and conform that it acts like a magnet. People sense that this is someone who is no longer playing games, someone who is not trying to be liked, but is simply authentically being. And authenticity is the most powerful magnetic field of all. In a world full of masks, a true face is a miracle. Jung spoke of shadow integration as one of the most vital steps toward individuation. Your shadows are not your enemies, Thomas. They are disowned parts of you that are begging to be seen. When you turn to look at them, they lose their power over you. They become your allies, sources of untapped energy. And suddenly you have access to a strength that was unavailable to you before. Imagine you've spent your whole life using a portion of your energy to suppress certain aspects of yourself. Perhaps your anger, or your ambition, or your sexuality, or your grief. What if you could reclaim all that energy simply by allowing those parts to exist? Not by acting them out, but by acknowledging them, giving them space, understanding their purpose. This is the difference between a person who denies their power and a queen who owns it. The queen is not afraid of her own intensity. She knows she can be both gentle and fierce, both vulnerable and powerful, and she is not reduced to a single role. She is the entire spectrum. And this inner fullness translates to the outer world. You no longer attract people who only want one piece of you. You attract people who can recognize and appreciate your wholeness. You attract situations that demand and celebrate your entire range. Your life becomes richer, not because you have more, but because you are more. This inner source is what Jung called the self, the center and the totality of the personality. When you have access to this center, you are no longer dependent on external validation. You are no longer driven by the fear of rejection or the hunger for approval. You are self-possessed. You rest in yourself. And you act from that rest, not reactively but consciously, not driven but guided, from the inside, not the outside. This is the essence of royal thinking. You are your own authority, not in the sense of being stubborn or closed off, but in the sense of having internal clarity. This clarity attracts. It's like a lighthouse in the fog. People who are also seeking their own center are drawn to it. They recognize in you something they wish to awaken in themselves, and this is the true service of a queen. Not to rescue others, but to remind them by her very presence that they too carry royalty within. You cannot save anyone, change anyone, or heal anyone. But you can stand so fully in your own truth that you give others permission to do the same. You become a mirror, not a savior, and that is far more powerful because it empowers others instead of making them dependent. A queen does not meddle in other kingdoms. She respects boundaries, both her own and those of others. She knows when to give and when to step back. She understands that every person must find their own center, and she cannot bypass that process for them, no matter how much she might want to. This wisdom comes with maturity, with understanding that love does not mean shielding someone from their consequences, but supporting them as they bear them. True love empowers, it does not disempower. It holds space, it does not rescue. When you love like this, from a place of fullness, not a place of lack, your love becomes a force that heals without harming. It challenges without crushing. It gives without depleting. Because it comes from a well that never runs dry, your own integrated self. And as you begin to live from this pattern, something remarkable happens. Things begin to align. Not because you are fighting or forcing, but because you are in harmony with your own true nature. Doors open, people appear, opportunities seize as if life was just waiting for you to finally arrive. A queen does not wait for the perfect circumstances. She creates her throne wherever she is. She understands that sovereignty is not a location. It is a state of being. She could be in a palace or a small apartment. It doesn't matter. Her royalty is not an external affair. It is an internal posture. You can adopt that posture now. In this moment. You do not have to wait until you have fixed everything, until you are healed, until you feel ready. The queen is already there beneath all the doubts and fears. She is just waiting for you to acknowledge her. Do you acknowledge her? That voice inside you that knows, that has never doubted, that has always been there, quiet and patient? That is your royal essence. It has survived every storm, every rejection, every disappointment. It is indestructible because it is not contingent on anything external. When you begin to think from this essence, your entire reality recalibrates. You no longer attract from a place of fear. You attract from a place of truth. You no longer attract from a place of lack. You attract from a place of fullness. You no longer attract from neediness. You attract from sovereignty. And what you attract will mirror this transformation. People who respect your dignity. Situations that honor your wholeness, opportunities that call forth your true potential. This is the secret. You attract what you are, not what you pretend to be. And the more you grow into your truth, the more magnetic your life becomes. This doesn't mean life will be easy, but it means you will have an internal anchor that will hold you through any challenge. You won't lose your center when things go wrong because your center is no longer tied to external circumstances. It is anchored in yourself, in that deep inner truth that can never be shaken. Jung called this the archetype of the self, the image of wholeness that every human carries within. This image is not static. It unfolds over a lifetime. But it was always there, as a potential, as a seed, as a promise. Individuation is the process of that seed becoming a tree. And that tree, your full self-realization, is what the world needs. Not another copy, not another adaptation, not another person trying to fit in. But you, in your full, unfiltered, radiant truth. That is your contribution. That is your throne. That is your crown. You do not have to earn it. You do not have to fight for it. You do not have to be granted it by someone else. It has always been yours. You just forgot to wear it. But right now, in this moment, you can choose to remember. The remembrance begins with a simple decision. I will no longer apologize for my existence. I will no longer make myself smaller than I am. I will no longer ask for permission to live my own life. I will take my place, not with arrogance, but with dignity, not with demand, but with certainty. When you live from this decision, everything changes. Your voice becomes firmer. Your boundaries become clearer. Your choices become more authentic. You stop working against yourself and start working with yourself. And that is the turning point where life stops being a battle and starts becoming a dance. Not everyone will understand your dance. Not everyone will hear your music. And that is perfectly fine. A queen does not dance for applause. She dances because the dance is her expression, her truth, her joy. And those who are meant to hear her music will find her and join in. The others will walk on by, and that is fine too. You are not here to please everyone. You are here to live your truth, and that truth is the most powerful magnetic field in existence. It attracts what belongs to you and repels what does not. Trust this process. Trust your inner queen. She knows the way, even when your mind cannot see the path. This path is not always comfortable. It will challenge you to release your old patterns, to give up your familiar roles, to leave your comfort zone. But it will lead you home. home to yourself. And that is the only journey truly worth taking. This is the restitution of the throne, the reclaiming of your power, your dignity, your sovereignty. No one ever truly took it from you. You gave it away. But now you can take it back, in this moment, with a single decision. I remember who I really am. And who are you, really? Not the conditioned version, not the adapted one, not the frightened one. You are the queen who was always there, who never left, who was just waiting for you to find the courage to see her. She is your essence, your truth, your power. When you think from this essence, when you act from this truth, when you live from this power, you attract everything, not because of what you do, but because of who you are. You are complete, undivided, whole, and wholeness is magnetic. The secret of the queens was never a secret. It was always inside you, hidden in plain sight. You just had to learn where to look within, to remember. And now that you remember, what will you do? These questions are not rhetorical. They are an invitation to make a choice that only you can make. No one else can walk this journey for you. No one else can place your crown upon your head. You must take it yourself, with both hands, without hesitation, without doubt. And when you do, when you truly step into your sovereignty, you will watch as the world reorganizes itself around you. Not because you are controlling it, but because you are finally in harmony with your own true nature. And that harmony sends out a signal, a magnetic field that draws in everything that resonates with it. When you begin to live this truth, not just understand it, but embody it, your life becomes a testament, not through words, but through presence. Others will look at you and wonder what has changed. They will feel your energy and be drawn to it without knowing why. You won't have to explain anything to them. A queen does not explain her royalty, she lives it, and that in itself is lesson enough. Your life becomes the message, your presence becomes the invitation, your truth becomes your gift to the world. And if this text has touched something in you, if you've had a realization or a question has surfaced, share it in the comments. What part of this journey resonates the most? Where do you recognize your own queen, and where do you still feel the resistance? Connecting with others on the same path can be powerful. You are not alone on this journey. Perhaps this is the first time you are hearing these words, or perhaps it is a deep reminder of something you have always known. Either way, this moment is significant. You were drawn here because something in you is ready to remember, to awaken, to recognize. Honor that impulse, follow it, trust it. The queen within you is no longer waiting. She is standing up. She is putting on her crown. She is taking her throne. Not someday in the future, but right now, in this moment. And with every breath, with every thought, with every choice, she becomes stronger, clearer, more present. You are her. She is you. There is no more separation. This is the completion of the journey, the realization that you were never separate from what you were seeking. The queen was always there, inside you, as you. The search is over. The remembrance is complete. Welcome home. Welcome to your sovereignty. Welcome to your throne.